Okay, so welcome to day two of the Las Vegas Remedy Users Group meeting. We've got Victoria Schmidt with CyberTrain, and she's going to talk about adding interactive practical exercises or simulations to your remedy training. Victoria has been a longtime consultant, trainer, and owner of CyberTrain. I've worked with Victoria on a number of projects. She's great. She's great at training. She's very creative. So I'm excited to see what she's got to show us. I'm going to put my mic on mute and I'm going to stop sharing and go ahead and let you. So you're actually sharing. So, all right, Victoria,
Okay,
take it away. Thank you so much.
sure. We'll go ahead and get started and we'll talk a little bit about making your training more engaging. So we're going to focus on practical exercises and simulations, but I will show you a few other ways that you can make your training a little more engaging for your students. So again, I'm Victoria Schmidt with CyberTrain, and I'm a senior architect, and I've got 20 plus years experience with training and over 16 with BMC products in particular. So we're going to go through and we'll talk a little bit about first, why would you even want to add interactivity to your training? What's it do for you? And then we'll talk about a few ways you can add it to e-learning, which is self-paced online training, versus the types you could add to instructor-led training, whether that's online or in person. And along the way, we're going to see a lot of examples of how you can do these. So that way you get some ideals brewing in your head, right? So first off, why do it? Well, it does make it more interesting and enjoyable to students. But is that the only reason you would want to add interactivity? Well, no. Because when you do that, and most importantly, when you do things like hands-on exercises or simulations where students can practice what they've learned, it makes your training stick. Therefore, they remember it. Adults remember training when it really applies to what they have to do, right? It's what's in it for me. How does that help me do my job? So you have to make it relatable and not just click on these fun things because they're cool. It has to have something relatable to their job. So if you can mimic the types of situations or scenarios they're likely to encounter in the workplace, that resonates with an adult learner a lot more than if you're just playing games that really don't make a lot of sense. The types of training that we're talking about with scenarios and interactivity and simulations and hands-on exercises are the best way that students can actually relate to this and say, oh, this is how I would do this on the job. And then when they get back to that job, the whole goal of your training is to transfer that knowledge and skill to the workplace. It doesn't matter if they remember it all during their test and then they forget it when they get back to the job, right? So we want to make that training stick and make them be able to apply it. So we like to say, make it a barn burner and not a page turner. In other words, don't make it boring. Whether you're an instructor up there, you don't want to read the slides to them. They can do that themselves, right? You want to do things that engage the student, engage their brain, make them think about what they're doing, how that could apply to their workplace. If it's e-learning, self-paced, we don't want to just click next. That is not interactivity, right? You want them to actually be able to practice what they're learning. The best way to do that is also make it scenario-based, right? Whether it's a demonstration, a simulation, or they're in a system doing hands-on exercises, any of those. And this applies to initial learning, refresher training, new hire, and you can even do some activities that will engage people to kind of break up the monotony, but also to get them thinking and getting them engaged in the training. When they're engaged, they learn. We can also use some things called gamification techniques, where you apply the theories behind games that get people where they want to play the game, where they want to level up, they want to go to the next level. You can apply that to your training, those same sort of techniques, and they don't have to be a job, but you're still using the same techniques. And in tomorrow's session, I'm going to talk a lot more about the gamification, so I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. But one of the things you want to make sure that when you're creating your exercises and simulations, you want to make them achievable, but not too easy. They have to be able to accomplish it, but if it's too easy, they're going to think, well, that was a waste of time. Of course I could do that. They need to engage and think about it and have a challenge. Adults like a challenge when they're learning. One is in a real system, hands-on exercises. They go into the system and do the exercise. The other type is in a simulated environment. It mimics a real system, but it's a safe environment, it's not a real system, and it has some advantages as far as maintenance goes for things like that. So let's talk about these three types. If you're using a real system, those are great because they're hands-on and it's the same kind of system they're going to be using in the real world. But not only do you have to have a real system for them to get into, hopefully it's not your production system, right? It should be a training system. That's a separate system that has to be stood up. It's got to be maintained. It's got to be updated. Training data in there that matches the scenarios that you're going to create, so that when you tell them to select this from the menu, that has to be in the menu. So you have to make sure that those things match up. You also have to create and maintain student accounts, and you have to have a way to reset that system so that at the end of that training class, when the next training class comes in, they get a reset, refreshed data. So you have to think about all that when using a real system. Real systems are great. I use them all the time. Lenny uses them all the time, so does Phil. But do know that they have a high overhead for maintenance for those. You can also do pre-recorded demonstrations and simulations that are recorded in a real system, and they provide realistic examples because they've been recorded in a real system, and they mimic that real system. You can create those with tools like these. So for demonstrations, you could use Adobe Captivate, Articulate Storyline, or even TechSmith Camtasia, right? Each of these have their advantages and disadvantages for demonstrations, but all of those would work if you're trying to demonstrate something. Why would you want to demonstrate it like this rather than have an instructor go in and do it in a real system? Sometimes you don't have a real system, right? Because have we been in a training class and that system went down? You ever been there? Well, I have. Teaching a class, the middle of the class, system goes down. It would have been great if I had a demonstration of exactly what I was going to show that I could have shared with them, because that could have at least let us continue on. They could have seen what I wanted to show them, and it would have worked perfectly. Sometimes it's because of system going down. Other times it's because it's the beginning of the project and you don't have a system yet, right? So that might be why you do it. For the simulations, the same sort of thing, but the other advantage for the simulations being pre-recorded are they mimic a real system. They can type in it, they can click on things, it goes to different things, it opens up menus, and I'll show you some examples of that. But there's not a system to maintain, to update, to upgrade. You don't have to set up student accounts. You don't have to reset the system. So it has a lot less overhead, and it works perfect every time. So that's some of the advantages to using that. And I will say, for the tool, I just listed Adobe Captivate because it is far and away the best tool for creating simulations in systems like Remedy, where Articulate Storyline claims they can do some, but I work in that system as well, and it's just not very realistic, and it's kind of mimicking and faking its way through it, and you can tell it. And Camtasia is really just recording of it. You guys still see the screen? I think it dropped me for a minute. Do you guys have me back now?
Sorry, yes, we need you to share screen.
Okay, so I need to share my screen again. It just dropped me for a minute, I think.
Yeah.
So I will share my screen again. And come on, it's going really slow for some reason. Share my sound. Of course, when we got to the good part where I was going to show you some examples.
Yeah, you might want to back up a couple slides because I'm not sure exactly how.
When it dropped,
Right.
I saw it flashed right on the screen before this. So you'll see the sound there. Now it's come in. All right. So now can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Good job. Keep going.
Okay. So I'll show you some examples of these, right? So typically, if you're going to do some sort of exercise, and we're talking about e-learning right now, and we'll talk about instructor-led in just a minute, but they kind of, some of the things apply to both. You want to give a demonstration of what you're talking about first, and then have them practice it. So you would, in the case of e-learning, record a demonstration in a real system.
Welcome
so here's
to
an
this
example of
demonstration.
that.
Read
Can you
over
guys
the
hear that?
instructions. When you're ready, click
Yep,
the
we got it.
forward button to start.
Okay, so this has audio in it. It's
In
given
this
them some
demonstration,
instructions for
we're
how
going
to
to
do
create
it.
a new incident using the Create New menu.
And I'm going to turn the audio off for a minute. But you usually have closed captioning that you can turn on and off that is the text that they're saying. Okay, next you need to go in here and type in the customer's name. This is the field you're going to use. Let's go over there. You start with the first name, blah, 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 right? So this is just like an instructor would do, but this is what you would do in a self-paced e-learning course that would mimic an instructor doing that. And also, it would be great if the instructor had this as a backup if they can't get into a real system, right? So you're showing them how to do it in a demo. But man, my cursor's like jumping all over the place. Then you would show them the same thing in a simulation where they get to do hands-on exercises, just like if you were logging into a real system. But this is a pre-recorded
Welcome to this simulation.
that's set up as a simulation.
Read over the instructions.
Some
When
instructions.
you're ready, click the forward.
Right.
In this simulation,
And again, I'm going to mute the audio so you can hear me. He's telling them what to do, but you're not going to point out, you're not going to point to where they click, do this, highlight it, because they've already seen how to do it. Now you want them to think, to have a challenge, to go through and do this. They could click on Smart Recorder, but you've told them you want them to use the Create New menu. If I click on Smart Recorder, it's going to give me a hint saying, oh no, you need to come over here, click on the Create New, right? And as soon as I do, the menu comes down just like a real system, right? I'm going to click on Incident, just like I would in a real system, boom. It's got to be that fast too, to mimic a real system. And then what are you going to do? You're going to go over here and click in the customer field and start typing, just like you would in a real system, right? So I'm going to go over here and type. And actually, this is usually much more responsive. It helps if I could spell. It's the WebEx that's slowing it down. And then if I hit enter, occasionally you want to give them an attaboy, right? Great, this is what you're doing. Now select it. And they've got the instructions here. Now go ahead and type in issue. Oh, where do I do that? Let me think. Oh yeah, it's a template. So it's not highlighted. I got to find that field, and then I got to type issue, right? And you keep going through, and you want it to respond very quickly. And I purposefully do not put a lot of correct feedback in there, just occasionally do it so they can go ahead and select the right things, right? And as they select it, it just keeps moving on. So if they're going in there, they can just click on the correct menus. And okay, let's do, is this, I'm going to select the wrong one again, just to show you. Oh, no, you did it wrong. Select the right one. This is a type of simulation where it mimics a real system while having that piece of paper you normally get for your exercise is shown on the screen. And as I had mentioned, this usually goes lightning fast, just like a real system, and that's the key to making it realistic. But show them a demonstration, then show them a simulation, all right? But then you can also do things that make it a little bit more robust by showing characters. So rather than just showing them the screen and how to do this and how to do that, add in some different voices, some different characters, and go through that same kind of demonstration scenario type of thing, but with them talking to each other during it.
Welcome to this demonstration. Read over the instructions. When you're ready, this demonstration will show you how you can create incidents.
Hey, it's Joe. Joe User. My email's down again. Can you help me with that?
The first thing to do is enter the customer.
Okay, so in this one, Joe's called in. He said, I got an issue with email, right? Just like you would if you were sitting on the support desk. And then the support agent said, okay, I've gone into Remedy. I'm creating a new incident. I'm going through and doing these things. And as you go through it, you know, she's talking about it and going through it. And then she might ask Joe some questions. Joe's going to come back and give her some answers, just like a real conversation. And that mimics real life. And so it's a lot more engaging to a person because they can visualize that's the kind of thing they do in their real job, right? And these are, you know, the ones I've been showing you are geared towards support agents, but this could just as well be for a developer. You know, hey, Joe, I want you to create a new field for this form. This is the kind of issue I'm having. And then you show them how to go in and actually create that type of thing. So it could apply to end users, support users, admins, you know, all kinds of different ways. But you can see the progression there where it's simple showing them in a system to setting the scene, having a scenario where they're talking back and forth. It becomes more and more engaging, more and more realistic to them. And again, you can go in and see it in a lesson. And I'm not going to go through all these different ones, but I will show you this other one that's a scenario that's not system-based, but it's actually a similar thing where this one's about fostering inclusion and belonging, right? So they're going through and they're reading all their information, going through this. And I've actually set this one up where they have to go through all this content here or they can't continue. So I know that they are clicking on these interactive activities because I'm not letting them continue until they do it, right? But as they're going through, now we're going to check their understanding by creating the scenario with our friend Steve here. Steve's been left out of discussions, activities, and meetings, and we want to get him a little more involved. So how would we do this? Would you invite him to a meeting, offer to walk him in there, and purposefully ask his opinion during the meeting? Or would you just bring him to the meeting, invite him, and let him go at it himself? Or just have a meeting with him, say, I'm sorry we haven't been inviting you to meetings. You know, I'll be sure to include you on the meeting invites in the future, those kind of things. So which one would you choose? Anybody? Pick one. 1, 2, or 3. You have to unmute yourself so you can pick. I'll pick for you. I'll pick 2, right? So if you pick 2, Steve's not really happy. He's not comfortable going to that meeting by himself for the first time. He felt a little singled out. So let's try this one again, right? You know, maybe I should have walked him to the meeting myself and got him involved in it. So let's click on that. And now Steve is a little happier, right? He's smiling. He's feeling more included now. Thanks for taking the time. And you go through and you build this scenario and it continues going on. So again, that's the type of thing where you're getting engagement by setting the scene for a real scenario. And you can do that whether it's with a system or it's a different kind of topic. Maybe it's what your process is and talking about that and teaching that. So you can do lots of different things with that. But that was talking about e-learning, but the same things apply to instructor-led. All the same things. Use a real system, demonstrations, recorded, or simulations. These can be the exact same ones used by an instructor at the appropriate time. Maybe they're teaching, going along. Now let me show you a demo because I don't have access to a system. Now I want to give you guys access. Here's the link. Go ahead and do the practical exercise in the simulation. So that way, if you don't have a system, an instructor can still utilize that and do it. And of course, if you have a real system, you might have a demonstration script or an exercise script. So an exercise script might look like this that you would give to the students. It should pop right up. And of course, it popped up on my other screen. It still did it. Let's move it over here where it's ginormous. Okay, so you can see this is step-by-step instructions with some pictures and things like that. So this might be something that an instructor gives and says, okay, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. Go ahead and go through this exercise. I've already shown you how to do it. So this is an example of how you would do it in a real system by handing them an exercise script, right? So different things like that. So let's talk a little bit about some other things that you can do to add interactivity to your systems, all right? So you could use, click to reveal. You could do virtual reality activities, exploratory activities where they go in and explore things on their own. The student has control. You can add engaging videos because just the music, the sound, the engagement of the video makes it more memorable. You can use tools like Kahoot, which I have one set up that if we have time, we'll play that. And you can also do things like learning games, and I have one of those set up we can play as well. And you can even do surveys or word clouds that come up where at the end of the day, you can ask students, okay, what did you think about today's activities? In one word, type that in. And when they do, and say you're online doing an instructor-led online class, it'll pop up in clouds everybody's words. So everybody can see it. And it's anonymous, but they can see how everybody's feeling about that day's activities or that day's training. And that helps the instructor know, okay, maybe they're feeling a little confused. We need to go back over a few things. Or they're feeling good, they're ready to continue on, those kind of things. So you can do these things with different types of tools. And of course, you can go full virtual reality. And I'm actually working with a company now that has set up one that's a virtual reality to teach doctors how to do a surgery that's super dangerous. And so very few doctors ever get the opportunity to do it. So they've created the virtual reality to teach them how to do it and practice it in different scenarios and know when it would be appropriate. So things like that could be great for teaching and using virtual reality. But you got to remember, you only use it when it's applicable to what you're trying to do. If you try to put on some virtual reality and do a remedy session of teaching them how to fill out an incident, I mean, you could have done that in a simulation and a demonstration for a fraction of the cost, and they're not really getting a lot more out of it if you did it virtual reality. So you have to think about, the outcome that you're trying to achieve for this. So let's real quick look at a couple more examples, and then we're going to play some games. So that'll be fun. So here's an example of one that just adds some music and some fun things that engage a student and keep their attention. Oh, I had turned off the sound. Start this over. So you see the music is very engaging, it's upbeat, it's keeping people's attention, things are happening on the screen, very quick, talking about what's going on. Right? And I'll turn off the music so you can hear me. But it's actually teaching them things, but in an engaging manner. So it's adding a little bit of interactivity through engagement, if you will. All right? You can also do, let's see this activity here. I've only got like 5,000 tabs up, so I don't know why it's going slow. All right, so in this one, again, we've got some music going on and different types of things happening in the system. So they're, giving them the goals and objectives, the scope, and it's going through. But you can have things like this where they're exploring it themselves. Remember I mentioned exploratory things? Where they're clicking on it and exploring it, but this could be a screen where they're clicking on different areas and getting information about those areas of the screen. Okay? So it provides a little bit of person control what's going on there. So, and there's a lot of gamification techniques and different things like that. But we've got a few minutes left here, and I wanted to get through the Jeopardy and the Kahoot. And if we have time, we can look at some of these other ones. But who's ever seen Jeopardy? Anybody? Right? Raise your hand. Yeah? Yay, nay? So we've got some hands raised. That's yes. So let's go ahead and restart. This is one that can be played by an instructor during an instructor-led class.
Thank you.
Or it can be set up to be done
It's good to see you.
individually. So guess what this one's called? It's Remedy Rockstar Time.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Remedy Rockstar Time. And I'm your man, Remedy Ron, and we got us a good one today. Team Evangeline versus Team Bernardo. Let's play.
So in this one, we would divide the class into two teams, Bernardo and Evangeline. We would give the instructions, right? They will take turns playing, and depending on if you're doing this in person or if you're doing this online, whoever raises their hand first or yells out, "Pick me," if they're on a Zoom, for example, as determined by the instructor. Don't shout out the answer, but then the instructor would call on that person. They would answer it. They'll either be correct or incorrect, and they will either get points or they will lose points. And then the next turn is selected by the next team. And whoever has the most points at the end of the game, that's who wins. And the instructor will play this based on time, right? Because we have a lot of game boards here, and maybe they've got a half an hour at the end of the day and they want to do a review. So these questions would be based on things that they covered during class that day. So I'll start us out with saying, okay, Alex, I would like General Remedy for 200. Okay. And the question is, what does AR stand for in Remedy AR system? Anyone? Can anybody answer that?
There's somebody here that wants to answer that. Barb, you want to answer that?
Action request.
Okay, Barb, are you team Evangeline or Bernardo?
I like Evangeline's hair, so yeah.
Okay, so let's look. So Evangeline buzzed in first, and she said it's action request. Was she correct or incorrect? She was correct.
Yay!
Yay!
That's what I'm talking about, action request system. So,
Yay, Barb.
Yay, Barb.
so now Barb's team, or Team Evangeline down here, you can see, has 200. All right? So, Phil, you're Team Bernardo. You get to pick next.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Change for 800.
Change for 800. No. I want asset for 600.
Asset for 600. Okay. So the question is, which two types of records can you create a CI outage from? Say, pick me. Whoever does yells that out first.
Bob, you can say pick me, Bob.
Pick Bill. Pick
No,
Bill.
pick Bob. Pick Bob.
All right, we'll go with Team Bernardo. What's the answer?
What was the question?
He
Yeah,
said,
Yeah, outages.
what two types of records can you create a CI outage from?
Incident. Computer system.
Yeah, incident and
No.
What?
CI records. That's
And a CI record.
outage record from.
Yes.
An incident or a CI record.
bigger.
Yay!
It's so, that we weren't expecting.
So that was good. So now Bernardo has 600. Evangeline, what would you like to pick next?
I'll pick incident for 1,000.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Incident for
Incident
1,000.
Wow, she's wanting to go big or go home, right?
Go home.
It's
And
big.
Lenny helped me with these questions too. So, what is the appropriate action to take if the incident cannot be resolved without investigation to the root cause?
Turn it into a problem ticket. PBI.
Oh. Evangeline buzzed in first
He did.
and said create a problem investigation.
That's what she said.
Woo! Yay!
All right.
You played this game before, right?
Definitely.
So you can see as you go through here, right? And at any time I could stop this and say, okay, we've run out of time. Let's jump to the winner so we can go to a different game. And let's see, who was the winner?
Evangeline.
As long as she doesn't hit me in the head with the guitar, we're good.
Evangeline. And he kicked donkey butt.
Had to kick it in ARS.
And then during the class, you would typically have that group of people in the class stand up right now. And they literally would stand up, cheer, take a bow, and everything. That's right, they are the winners. And that gets students really excited about this. And if they get to play these kind of games where they're testing their knowledge of what they learned at the end of each day, they really get engaged, right?
Yep.
So that's bringing in a little bit of gamification to help with your training. So another type you can do is called a Kahoot. Have you guys ever heard of a Kahoot before?
A Kahoot? We have not.
No, we haven't. Kahoot.
All right, well, this is actually used in schools. And my husband, Phil, actually used it at his company and did some stuff with
Well, it looks like we may have lost Victoria. Maybe we had too good of a time. Just had so much fun in this training gamification thing. We may have had too good of a time and lost her. So
He'll hit the buzzer.
yeah, I hit the buzzer, right? So again, thank you, Victoria, for this introduction to gamification. We appreciate your presentation, and we'll put it up on the website and record this session. Thank you.
Thanks, Victoria.
Thanks, Victoria.